next one. This one shocked me. I'm going to have to say, like, you know what I mean, that Arsenal are interested in him. Puts a lot of pressure on Ramsdale. I think is, you know, been very, very good for us. But it just shows you that what they're looking to do is maybe, yeah, and I think it's right. If, you know, if something happens to Ramsdale, or, you know, and you've got Champions League football and cups and everything like that, I think that what could happen, Dan, is quite easily, like, they could say to Aaron Ramsdale, right, you're doing the league and you're doing the cups. I don't know how it's going to work, because you've got to keep two very, very good goalkeepers happy. Hearing rumours that Matt Turner's looking to go to Nottingham Forest. Yeah, so it's a move that I think excites me, because one thing is exactly what you said. If they're prepared to spend that sort of money, then that's unbelievable, like, you know. And realistically, if you really look at it, like, you know, 65 million on Havertz, 40 million, say, if it was to come on RAYA, and really, if you look at it with Timber, I don't think he's guaranteed as being a starter, even though I've been very, very impressed with him. You know, that's about I don't know, 150 million on squad players that are going to strengthen the squad. So all of a sudden, their squad is looking very, very strong, Dan, very, very strong, and that's what you need. I do think that a couple are going to go. I think there's rumours now that Eddie's being touted for a deal. I've said it. If someone comes, is it Crystal Palace? If Crystal Palace come in with a 40 million pound bid or more, I think you've got to take that. I think you really
100%. I probably would have sold him for Leslie. I can't even lie. Eddie, I don't know if that's a great deal for Palace at 40 million. That's a lot of money, but you're right. If they come in at even 30, I'd take it. I think that Balogun as well looks like he's going to go. I mean, he hasn't really kicked a ball in pre-season, and they're talking about both Eddie and Balogun going. Now, if that happens, then we're going to need another forward coming to the football club.
And I think they're going to get one
for sure. And you know, Daniel put in a great question here. Daniel Parker says, even Dan and Lee, question: if we're spending 40 million on a goalkeeper, why are we not addressing the urgent backup for Saka first? And that would be everyone's concern. Now, it doesn't mean we're not gonna address the issues that we also need in the squad, but like Daniel said there, you'd like to think that there's a priority for a forward to come in that can either cover for Saka or cover for Jesus ahead of a goalkeeper. But it looks to me, and I stand by this, that if we're getting a goalkeeper, I really don't think that's instead of a forward. I really don't. I think that is going to be, you think about it, Lee, we've got a lot of outgoings to happen at Arsenal, right? We've got a lot of outgoings. It ain't just going to be Eddie and Balogun that we're looking at selling, right? You've got Pepe that's got to go out the club. You've got Tavares. You've got Lokonga. Patino looks like he might be going with a buyback clause. Rob Holding's got to go. Austin Trusty's a player that I think Ipswich Town are looking at getting on loan for the season. Marquinhos, again, looking at a loan move. I think Burnley are looking at Lokonga on loan. I was listening to Tom earlier. You've still got Cedric and Runnison that are still at the club. You know, there's like 10 players there that are all potentially looking at moves. Now, they're not going to get us 400 million back, but they are going to get you a little bit of money here and there, 10 million here and there. Like you've just said, Eddie and Balogun, 30 million or so, because they're young and English. Now, that is going to give us a lot of money to go and get somebody like, you look at it, David Raya, 40 million, they're saying. That's one of Balogun going. So Balogun can go. That's our money for Raya. You know, the rest of the money gets put towards that forward position that we need, plus a little bit of money that the Cronkies have still got for us. So I think we're going to be in a really good position here, Lee. I really do, mate.
Yeah, and I think Arsenal will attack the window at the end of the season as well. Like, you know what I mean, on another four. If you know, if they have to sell both Eddie and Balogun, like, you know, I think that would mean that we'd have to go and get another forward, whether that be Tony in January or Vlahovic or somebody. I think that they will. Listen, Arsenal are not afraid to spend the money if they think it's the right player. That is Absolutely. A fact. That is a fact. You know what I mean? So if the player that comes up that they want, whether it be a Declan Rice or so and so, or Tony or whoever, or a goalkeeper for 40 million, they will pay it. You know, they're not actually looking at the money and saying, "Oh, that's 40 million, that's whatever." They're actually looking at it now like a proper club by saying, "Do you know what? We need a proper backup goal. We need two goalkeepers." You know, it's really is, Dan, when you think about it. If you've got You could actually say the same about Ben White and Timber, say, playing on that right hand side. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
you know, you've got competition there. You've got competition for central defenders. Why can't you have competition for goalkeepers? You know
Well, it
what I
should
mean?
be like that in every position, Lee. That's what we need.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what they're looking to do. The only difference is that, you know, the chances are that a goalkeeper can't be subbed. That's the only difference. When you think about it, you know, you might get on, you might not. But I think that they're looking at it and thinking whether Arteta's looked at it and just said, like, you know, in the Europa League last season, Turner wasn't quite what he was looking for. They can't take risks no more. You know, the end of it, you know, we've got to be challenging for the title. But if you take your foot off the gas here or your eye off the ball, like, you know, you can be caught up by the Liverpools and Manchester Uniteds and Newcastles and Aston Villas of this world. So I think it's very, very important that they do these things. And, you know, listen, if it'd be a massive thing if they was to get him. Massive, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden, you know, you've not got to worry about if Ramsdale. I think sometimes Ramsdale may have played a bit last season when he was not quite right. I don't know, like, you know what I mean? And you know, give him a break and that. So I think it'd be a good thing, you know. And I do think that come the end of the season, I think that what we're seeing now is a few players going down. I think that's got to happen, you know. And then I think at the end of the transfer window, I think Arsenal will go in again big, and I think that's exciting, isn't it? It really, really is exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Let's talk a little bit about David Raya, because David Raya, for me, has been one of the best goalkeepers in the league this season. I honestly stand by that. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And I think along with the likes of Nick Pope and Allison, who were top draw, and Ramsdale, to be fair, he was right up there. And we were sniffing around him a couple of seasons ago. And I think our goalkeeping coach at the time really liked him. And I think it stuck.
Yes, I remember that.
Remember, with the Arsenal coaching staff, I think they've been looking at this kid and thinking, so what is he special then? Oh, wow, he ain't half bad. If it is true that the rumours are that his contract's running down, then obviously Brentford are going to take the money. And I think 35, 40 million pounds is probably about what I'd expect it to be for this market. Now, I'm just surprised, Lee, that Man United and Chelsea aren't sniffing around him, because they both needed a goalkeeper. Obviously, Man United now gone for Onana, and Chelsea, I still think, need a goalkeeper to only have Kepa. So I think that it's really key here that we get this done. And I also think it's interesting that he would rather come to Arsenal than Bayern Munich. So for me, that is fantastic, because he knows he's not going to be first choice at Arsenal. Now, I'm sure he's got in his head, look, I can get ahead of Ramsdale. I'm better than him. I'm good enough for him. I don't think there's much between them, if I'm honest, from what I've seen in the last couple of seasons. I don't look at Ramsdale and go, you are head and shoulders ahead of Raya. I don't look at Raya and think he's head and shoulders ahead of Ramsdale. I think this would be an unbelievably good signing. And I don't think we have to go back too far to have two good goalkeepers at the club. But we always have had one number one and one that you think, oh, let's hope we don't get injured because he'll have to come in. And I think that's what's really key now. I'm not going to start slating Matt Turner because he's hardly played for Arsenal. But I could tell straight away, Lee, is like, you ain't going to make number one. Like, you just don't look good enough. You're not as good as Ramsdale. And I think now, if you've got a Carabao Cup and an FA Cup, and perhaps some of the Champions League games, if you do want a keeper that's needed for backup, David Raya would be an unbelievably good signing. So I'd be excited by this one, Lee.
Yeah, excited for it. And also, like, you know, Ramsdale knows that, you know, even if he has a bad game, that he's probably going to be the start in the next game. I'm not saying that's in his mindset, but, you know, all of a sudden he's being pushed. You know what I mean? Like, really, really high like that. And also, the thing is, if you can get Raya, you know, if he does really, really well, you might only want him for a season or so, and then you move for another one. Like, I don't really know how this goalkeeping thing works, if I'll be really honest. I don't know how you keep two goalkeepers happy. I'm going to be.
Well,
really
can I
honest.
ask you on that a minute? And I'll just stop you on that a minute, because I was listening to Talk Sport on the earlier. I went out to some dinner earlier with my mate, and there's a bloke rung up Talk Sport, Arsenal fan, and he said, "Oh, I'm not too sure about Arsenal and Arteta with goalkeepers." And I thought that's a bit of a strange thing to say. And I listened to him, and he was basically taking it back. And you do forget, we had Emi Martinez, and he let him go. We had Leno that he gave number one shirt to, then realised quite quickly, actually, we don't want Leno, we want Ramsdale in. And now he's thinking, oh, we do need David Raya. Now, that to me says exactly what you've just said. You can't keep two goalkeepers happy. And then when the bloke had replied to him on TalkSport, he said, I think Arsenal will be fine with Raya and Ramsdale for one season, but that will be it. One of them will go the following season because one of them will say, well, I'm not first choice and I want to play. And I thought it was interesting there. And I think, how do you keep two goalkeepers of that quality happy? It's very, very difficult, isn't it?
Exactly that, like, you know, I mean, I find that you could, like, say, for instance, you know, you got Timber and Ben White. You can play Ben White centre half on certain games, or Timber at left back like he did against Barcelona, or play him in midfield or whatever. You know, you can't do that. I can't say around, you're playing right wing today. You know, I mean, you just can't do it, like, you know. So it is a difficult thing to do. How can I say this? If you was Aaron Ramsdale, let's just say, like, you're gone into a meeting with Mikel, and he said, right, you're going to play every Premier League game. Well, you know, I've just worked hard to get into the Champions League, boss. You know what I mean? I would like to play in the Champions League. Then you're saying to the other manager, other goalkeeper, well, you're just going to play Champions League, FA Cup and Carabao Cup. You're going to give you 20 games a season, you know, but you're not going to play in the Premier League, you know. So, well, I want to play in the Premier League. So it's going to be very, very, I think it's a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah.
You know,
I will say as well, though, on the flip side of that, Lee, Ramsdale, I really like Ramsdale, by the way. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. I think he's been outstanding for us in the last couple of years. He's made a couple of mistakes in pre-season that people might look at and highlight him for. At the moment, there's no one pushing his place, is there? So he's making them errors, and he thinks, I'm going to get in next week. Lucky, I've made an error, but luckily the other geezer's just nowhere near as good enough. If he makes an error now, Arteta might be ruthless enough to go, well, listen, I bought David Raya in for decoration, mate. He's coming back in. And I don't mean that to be harsh just to Ramsdale, but that should be like that in every single position. Let's say Saka. Let's say Saka at the moment, and he hasn't had it because he's just outstanding. He's by far our best player. He's a star boy, isn't he? But if he has a bad game, he's getting in next week, not just because he's top quality, but because Reece Nelson ain't the level. So you can say that about that position as well. So I think now, if Partey has a bad game, Rice comes in. If Timber ain't quite ready, White or Tomiyasu is there. Tierney's still there. If Zinchenko has a knock, we've got centre-backs now that can cover each other in positions left side and right side. This is what we need all over the pitch. And I think in defence now, Lee, we've got like sort of 8 there that are absolute quality that you just think, do you know what? I'm quite happy if we get injuries in defence now because we'll be fine. But at goalkeeper, right wing and up top, if we're losing Jesus, Saka and Ramsdale, you can see why Mikel Arteta is looking at those positions.